Introduction to Plato. So Plato was born in 427 BCE, while he died in 348 BCE. The letters BCE stand for before Common Era or before Christ Era. So he was born 427 years ago before the birth of Christ, while Plato died 348 years ago before the birth of Christ. So what did he want? Plato wrote Ideal Republic, and in his Ideal Republic he wanted that there is itself is a great literary talent. We find the way Plato writes, so it shows his sensibility of a poet, right? So he had a great literary talent. Now, when Plato was fashioning his ideal state in the Republic in 373 BCE, decided it would be best if the poets not be allowed to remain in his ideal state. So when Plato wrote a book, The Republic, and in the Republic he fashioned an ideal state. So when he was fashioning his ideal state in the Republic, he decided that it would be better that poets not to be allowed in his ideal state. That's why he wanted to kick them out from his ideal state. So why he did not allow, or why he did not want to allow poets in his ideal state, we will discuss in detail. If we talk about what might be or what ought to be, then we are poets. What Plato described never happened, right? What he was describing. So he was not writing what had been. He was creating out of his imagination. And when you create something out of your imagination, then you are a poet. So he was a poet among philosophers, because he was not something that happened. When we say that something happened, you're talking about past. And when you say something is happening, you're talking about present. But he was talking about something that never happened. So when we say that something never happened, so it is done by poets, because poets, they imagine something and then they say that what might be or what ought to be. That's why we say that he was a poet among philosophers, right? Now, being poet and philosopher, he was the enemy of poets. So the word is poets is a type of mistake here. And poetry. Not only bad poets, but all. So he was not against bad poets, but he was against all poets, right? He condemned poetry and poets. He considered poetry to be harmful. He confesses that some of the happiest moments of his life have been spent with the books of Homer, but Homer, according to him, is the enemy of truth. So despite of sending some of the best moments or happiest moment of life with the poetry of Homer, but still he says, but Homer, according to Plato, was the enemy of truth, right? So poets are not telling us truth, but they are telling us lie, right? So they are a way of reality. On this slide, we will discuss what Plato thinks about poetry. So he says, poetry is imitation of imitation, thus twice removed from reality. So what is poetry? It's an imitation. It's a copy. Copy of what? Of another copy. So if it is copy of another copy, thus poetry is twice removed from reality, right? Because you have something in front of you and that is already a copy and you are going to copy that. So then you are, for Plato, art is imitation. So poetry is also one of the form of art. So then poetry is also imitation. So he says poetry is imperfect imitation of an imperfect imitation. So whatever we have in this physical world, they are imperfect. So what does an artist do? Or what does a poet do? They imitate. They imitate the things of this world, which are already imperfect. So if you are copying something that is imperfect, then you are twice removed from reality. Fine? So that's why he said that poets and artists are twice removed from reality. It is the world of shadow. What? He is talking about poetry. So poetry is the world of shadows and falsehood. Right? It's not true. So he gives 4 arguments against poetry. We shall consider why Plato kicked out the poets. So in our next lecture, we will discuss the 4 grounds on the basis of which Plato wanted to kick poets from his ideal republic, right? So we will discuss in detail those 4 grounds on the basis of which Plato wanted to kick the poets out from his ideal republic. We will have also the Urdu version of this lecture. So I will upload a video that will be in Urdu. So I need your feedback that if you are interested the same lecture that you want me to upload, also the same lecture in Urdu, so then I will upload also more. Thank you so much. It was all about introduction to Plato, his date of birth and his date of death, who was Plato, and he was a philosopher and he was a poet among philosophers because the way he was writing, so his manner was of poetic. That's why we say that he was a poet among philosophers, because he was saying that literature is not what has been and is, but what might be or what ought to be. So when you are saying something like this, then you are poet, because you are creating something out of your imagination. So keep watching and enjoy learning with Muhammad Imran. Thank you so much.